Welcome to the Tribe of Testimonies. Here you will find conversations with faithful Native American members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, sharing their stories and their love of the Savior. My name's Andrea Hales. I'm Navajo, and I'm glad that you've decided to come and join us today. I'm on the phone today with my new friend Marilyn Reed. We met last year in passing at the Mesa Gathering of Tribes, and I held on to her card. She gave me a card with her name and phone number on it, and I just reached out to her just the other day. It just was apparently the right time and right for both of us. So Marilyn, would you please introduce yourself in your tribal way as much as possible? If it's in your language, great. If it's not, that's fine. Not everybody speaks their language, and some languages are dead.
Thank you so much. Yeah. My name is Marilyn Reed. She'eya Marilyn Reed Yanashia. Denenshla. I'm Navajo. Ado Dian Ba'awetnshla. I'm a child of God. I in our Dene culture we also have clans, so I am of the Turning Mountain people clan and born for the Towering House clan. And my maternal grandfathers are of the Blackstreetwood clan, and then my paternal grandfathers are of the Deer Springs. Thank you, and I am very happy to be here and to be able to share and to be able to just have this opportunity to express my testimony and to be able to allow others to hear my testimony, and hopefully it will help them with their testimony. And so thank you. And I live on the Navajo Nation, about 25, 30 miles, between 25, 30 miles from the south rim of the Grand Canyon. And I have 6 children and about 13 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. And I belong to the Cameron branch, which is part of the Tuba City Stake. And so,
cool.
Thank you so much.
Cool. Marilyn, would you please share something that you love about your heritage as it relates to the gospel of Jesus Christ? It can be pretty much anything: a story, a celebration, a way of life, a ceremony. What do you love about your heritage as it relates to the gospel?
You know, I'm so thankful for our heritage, and as Native people, as Indigenous people, in my patriarchal blessing, it says that I'm a descendant of Father Lehi. And so that to me is something that's really special. And since we do a lot of clan ship kind of identification in our Navajo way, you know, I'm just really thankful for that part of it, for being able to relate to other people through clan, and then just to be able to relate to other Native and Indigenous people, you know, here, because we come from that background, from that same background, basically. And so I know our culture kind of weaves in and out. And so I'm really interested in that and seeing how, like my clan, where did it come from and what group of people came together to make it, and where were they in relationship to, you know, history. So I'm very interested in that for myself. But at the core of it, you know I am a child of God. So that really helps to ground me, you know. But I'm also very interested in this whole clanship that we all share. I know we share more than we probably know. So
Yeah. Thank you. So, when I met you last year and you gave me your card, you were working as a.
I was a director of a nonprofit organization.
But then when I talked to you a couple days ago, planning ahead for this, you told me that you had spent most of your career life in schools. Yeah?
Yeah, yeah,
Tell
yeah.
us about.
So, yeah, so when I came home from the LDS placement program and I finished high school and I got married and I had my children and then I decided to go back to school and got a degree in a bachelor's degree in elementary education. So that's kind of where I started out and taught at the elementary level. And then I taught elementary for a number of years and then I decided I wanted to be a principal. And so in the meantime I had gone back and gotten a master's degree in um, multicultural education, which I love, and I'm still using a lot of that knowledge. And then I went back again and got a master's degree in educational leadership, and that's how I became a principal of schools. And it was an amazing opportunity to be able to work with uh, teachers, parents, other administrators, especially the children, and on Navajo Nation, basically. And then I taught later. I taught at the college level. So it's just education is something that I really love, and I so enjoy it. So um, I'm still trying to figure out how I can kind of keep my foot in there somehow. So I'm really excited, even though I'm retired. I still love to do educational kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
What schools were you the principal for? Like, and what, okay, but before that, what grades did you teach? And then which schools were you principal?
so there's here in Cameron um there's a couple of school districts. So, but I first taught with the Page School District. We moved to Page, Arizona, because I have a son that has a serious mental illness. So we were trying to find a place where he would get better services. So we ended up moving to Page, where we spent about 12 years. And that's where I started my teaching at the elementary level. And then I somewhere after 12 years, we decided to move back to our home in Cameron. And I was able to get a job with the Tuba City School District. And I taught for them about 9 years, 9 or 10 years, about 9 years, I would say. And then in that process of time, I became a principal at the Badaway, uh, what they call the Tsinabas Elementary School in in Gap, Arizona, which is not too far from here, from Cameron, in between Cameron and Page. I taught, or I was a principal there. I taught there, and then I was a principal there as well. And then that's where I first started being a principal. And then I left from there, stayed with the same district, but I went to Cameron or Zitla Bay Elementary School, and I was a principal there. And so we had to do like I taught and was a principal at the same time. So because we didn't have enough teachers. So but I also taught on the Hopi Nation at Second Mesa Day School, and that was quite an experience there, and a different culture, different area. I also taught at Moenkopi Day School, which is on at Moenkopi, Arizona, next to Tuba City. So it's just, just so many different amazing educational opportunities to just really interact with our Native kids, and the whole Native teachers and everything was just really neat.
That's awesome. So, what are some things that you learned about yourself, about other people? What are some life lessons that you learned while you were teaching in principal positions as well?
Mm. One of the things I learned um, early on, we have very special and very amazing people, children. They very capable if they're given the opportunity to um, just excel. And sometimes we, get the negative side of it is, and you'll hear it in across the Indian nations, is that the native kids, the Indian or the native kids are always at the bottom in terms of their ability to learn and to excel, and and most of the time they're below the 40th percentile compared to other groups of children across the nation. So it can be really discouraging when you see those kinds of statistics, and it makes you wonder, what is lacking, what is missing. And but I've come to learn that, you know, it's 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 what we as Native people, have gone through, and often affects how we are able to learn. Not that we can't learn, not that we can't excel. And so I came to understand that if you just give children the opportunity to excel, they will really excel. And I remember, as a third grade teacher, that was one of the things that I came up against, because third grade is a benchmark grade in Arizona, and possibly across the nation. But in Arizona, third grade is one of the first benchmark grades. And so they really look at it to see where the kids are reading, math, science. And we always fall way below our other counterparts. And so I decided that I would meet the kids where they were. I would try to figure out where they were and then teach them from there. And so I learned that these kids, they could excel. And we were a a failing school, a D. One year we were a D school, and my students, when they made that effort, we were able to meet the standards. And so I know that our children are very special, and they have the capabilities. And so that's one of the things, because it can be like when you come on the Navajo Nation, or possibly other other communities, sometimes the environment of the community is really low and it's discouraging. And sometimes, we wonder why. And it can be something that makes us feel depressed, but really, we are very capable people. We're very resilient. And so that's something that I really learned. And I'm proud of our people. We've come a long ways, and the Lord has a lot for us to do. So I believe that with all my heart.
Yeah. I love that. I just wrote down on my notes that you met the kids where they were, and I think that's so important. Not just educationally, but like whatever it is, right? I mean, my daughter is always telling me I don't get it when we talk about church stuff, and I'm like, how can you not get it? And yet I'm like, wait a second. I think what you just said, I need to take that more to heart about her. Like, I need to meet her where she is, even if I'm like, you already know this. You already know this. So I
Yeah,
appreciate that, what you just said. Yeah.
yeah. And we don't know um when a child comes into the classroom, like we don't know what they're struggling with. And so our expectation might be unreasonable for them until we get to understand what the challenges they're facing. Why is it that they're not being, able to meet our expectations? And so once we get to know them and understand what their home life is like, and what are some of the struggles that they're facing, maybe health, what, I don't know, there's so many different factors that could play into it. But once we know, then we can be able to work with that. That's how I felt. And so I think in any situation it's like that, not just in the educational setting.
Yeah. So, like you said earlier, you also were, for a time, not very long, I guess, directing a branch of a nonprofit, right?
Yeah.
So, do you want to talk about that?
Well, I had the opportunity to, um, and I've never, I've been a principal, which is probably almost the same as being a director, because there's a lot of different things that you do being a principal, which is almost the same as being a director. But yeah, I this organization um came on to Navajo Nation and wanted to provide opportunities for our Native people so that they could grow um their own food, basically, and to see if there was a way that they could use that knowledge as growers, farmers, to be able to um be economically um able to take care of. I'm trying to say, like, they could create their own business and maybe provide for their own families. And so there was a lot of educational parts to it that we had to put in place, because on native on Navajo mainly, that I know of, we tend to kind of stick to our traditional ways of growing and what we've been taught by our grandparents and things. So we ended up building these little growing tunnels. We called them hoop houses, and we were able to get funded and get donations to build about 30 something hoop houses or growing tunnels. And then we taught people how to grow in there. And actually they had to help us build it as well. So, it was just really neat how a lot of the growers were able to grow things there that they had never grown in a traditional setting, in like they grew broccoli or strawberries, or things that they would never grow otherwise. I shouldn't say they would never grow, but they
Not
were,
typically growing.
yeah, typically growing. They would typically grow like corn or melons or squash, those kinds of things. So it was really something that was really important, because here on Navajo Nation, 1 out of every 10 persons is diabetic, and it may be even worse than that now. And so, in order for people to get into like a diabetic diet, um, they need to eat way better. And with the situation on Navajo Nation, I'm sure it's the same in a lot of communities. We only have one grocery store um, right here in our area, which is the Tuba City Bashas, and which is 30 miles from where I live. And then in Flagstaff, of course, there's like, 6 or 7, 8 grocery stores there. But it's about 60 miles from where I live. So, it provided an opportunity for people to grow their own produce, and there was just a lot of education involved with it. So we did that. And the other part of it we did was provide capacity building in how to assess homes, and that was really needed here because there's such a lack of um, good housing here. There was money available, but a lot of the people here, what we call chapters, our government entities, they don't know how to really assess homes. So we help do that as well. So it was quite a learning experience, but and I'm so thankful for that opportunity and to be able to help our own communities here in the western part of the Navajo Nation. So that's kind of what I did.
Yeah. Did you did you see any miracles while you did this? Any like were goals met?
Oh yeah. So we saw and I saw people take to these. I wish I could share some pictures with you of people who um, actually got into their hoop houses, their growing tunnels, and just they were growing cabbage and tomatoes, and I just could not believe it. I mean, they were just experimenting, and it gave them a sense of hope that um, they could actually do something with this. And so I just went to a meeting last week with a group that's trying to form their own nonprofit, and they call themselves the Bacoa Farmers. And it's just in Tuba City. There's an area down there. It's like a little canyon. It's Curly Valley, and they do a lot of growing there. And so they want to create a farmers market. And we had some funding through one of the donors to create a farmers market. And so the hope is still there that might happen this year. And so in this way, people can grow and also sell what they're growing and, share some really good food with other people. And so I think that to me is a miracle because it wasn't in place before. And now the hope is that it will be there and it will continue to flourish. So it's really exciting. It's really like um, hopeful, and it gives you this feeling of like you know there's a sense of the pride that people are putting into it because they're growing something. And so it just makes you feel really good. So that's one of the fruits of what, not just only us. I shouldn't say that our organization is the only one that did that, but there were other organizations that we partnered with that were also supporting this movement of growing. And so we were able to partner with them as well. So, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done in all of these areas. So,
That's
but it's
cool though.
exciting.
Yeah, that's cool
Yeah,
that they work together too.
yeah, which is really neat. And we built small growing tunnels, 24 by 16 foot. We built some 16 by 50 foot, and then 16 by 100 feet. So, I mean, some of the areas that the people have to grow in in this western part of the Navajo Nation, they're plagued by uranium. And so, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard that. And so finding a really suitable, safe place to grow in some of these communities, it's really a challenge. I know here in Cameron, we have one of the growers. She's growing along the river, and she's doing the best that she can to grow in an area that's not um, affected by uranium. And because she's diabetic and she knows how important it is to eat in a really healthy way. And so, but she's doing a larger scale farm, So it's really exciting that she's wanting to do this. And she's a huge example to me. So,
Yeah. So were you raised as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? You said that you had done the placement program when you were a child.
yeah, my parents, my mother and father, they were baptized in, I would say, the mid 1950s, um, by the Mormon mission or the LDS missionaries, and um, and so when I, of course, turned 8 years old, I was baptized. But that was one of the criteria for the placement program, was you had to be baptized. And so my mom and my dad felt it was, I mean, I feel like they were very strongly inspired that we had to go on this program. And I I'm thankful for that, because I think, it was really a harsh situation to be taken away from your home and to be sent somewhere you've never been, into a city, to white people, I shouldn't say white people, Anglo people, and to be there for the whole school year. But my mom and dad did the right thing. And I think if it wasn't for them doing that, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So I think it's really a critical piece of my life. So yeah, I was baptized into the church at 8 years old. I've been a member ever since.
Yeah. I I think that your parents showed a lot of faith by by doing that, by letting you go on the program. It sounds like you had a good relationship with your parents, and so for them to let you go, that was hard for them.
Yeah, I think so. It was hard for us, and I'm sure it was hard for my mom and my dad. And and back then, we didn't have cell phones, and my mom couldn't really write. My dad did, he wrote to us, but my mom really struggled with writing, so I never got a letter from my mom. But I knew that she loved me and that she wanted me to be there. And so, and once my mom said something to us, it carried weight all the way through the school year, you know. And she would say, "You do good, you listen, you learn, and basically, like, you make us proud in everything you do." And you could hear that over and over in your mind as you're there. And my mom was very strict and very stern and very, you know, she meant whatever she said to you, she meant it very seriously. So I always took it to heart what my mom told me. So I I, I just did the best I could.
Yeah.
So
So you said you have 6 children. Is your husband also a member of the church?
yes, he is.
And and so how many of your children have remained active members of the church?
That is one thing that all my children have been baptized and are members of the church. And we were just talking about this with another sister. Um, you know, my children, um, one of them goes to church, and then the other five are like trying to find their way. And I think about Lehi's dream, so I work over here motioning to them this way, but they're finding their way. And so, that's one of our biggest uh, prayers, is that they'll be able to hear us beckoning to them to come this way, so towards the tree. But But that's one of the biggest uh hopes, I guess, in our lives, for many parents that feel the same way I do about my children. But it's hard, you know.
For sure. I I I I've been thinking about that, and it's one of the things that it talked about in Lehi's dream was they they feasted on it, and I was like, man, we all just need to get to that tree and eat so much that we can't move away from it. Like, just get our stuff ourselves silly with it, right? And
Yeah, yeah. Well, I keep thinking back to just recently listening to President Eyring give a talk, and basically he admonished us as parents to keep doing the best that we can, keep holding on to the iron rod and moving forward. And we're coming up to the tree, and many of us have tasted of the fruit, and we know, you know, and if we continue to do that and just pray, Alma prayed and fasted for his son, and an angel appeared to his son. And the stripling warriors the mothers taught their sons, and they did miraculous things. And, and even Enos' parents, and he remembered what they said. And so, there's just so many amazing examples of parents that just would not let up, would not stop praying and having faith that God would prevail and that God would answer their prayers. And so we just have to have that faith, um, that desire to do our part, and the Lord will do his part to help us. So I really believe that, and I can't doubt that. Yeah.
yeah, in fact, you mentioned that the other day when we were chatting that in your calling, you have two different callings, but you're using both of them to strengthen parents in one way or another. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, so I'm a second counselor in the Tuba City Stake Relief Society, and I'm also a young woman's president in our branch. And that may seem overwhelming, and it is at times, um, but when I just feel like the Lord's really trying to strengthen us to do these things. But, the I'm glad to do both of them because the mothers, you know, and I go back to the 2000 Stripling Warriors, those young men, boy, they just remembered, the words of their mothers, and they did not doubt that their mothers knew it. And so, as mothers, we have to stand. And Lehi told Jacob and Nephi and Sam and Laman and Lemuel to stand, to shake off these chains with which you are bound, you know. And all of us mothers, we need to do that too, in order for our children to be able to move forward like these 2000 stripling warriors, and the amazing things that these young men were able to do to help their people at that time. And then to be able to work with these young women in the Cameron branch, I'm really struggling with it. And the adversary, boy, he just has all of these different things that he does to make it difficult for us. And so because he knows we have a great work that we need to do. And so, but I'm certainly not going to give up. And so I I just know that these young people are just special, and the Lord has, you know, allowed them to come at this time. and they are going to make a huge impact. And so we have a great responsibility to them. And so we can't give up on them. That's for sure. So we have a youth night on Wednesday where we get them together, help them with their um, tutoring them with different things they're struggling with. And then on certain nights, I have activities for the young women. And and then they have games that they play. And so we're just trying to keep them all together and then keep adding to that group. And, I had a wonderful, wonderful Sister Sealy. Um, she did that for us. I'll never forget it. Even though we did all these things that were really not good when we were young, she brought us back together and held us together and reminded us every week, you know, what we needed to do as young women. And I'm forever grateful to her. So that's kind of like where I'm coming from with the young people. And so I have this ability to, with these callings, to be able to affect uh, the mothers and the young women. It's a wonderful opportunity to do something for the Lord in that way. So thankful.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I'm a counselor in our young women, and we see things that we're like, we just need to strengthen them. And I think one of the best ways is to just love them and help the parents love them too. So, yeah. What else should we talk about today?
Well, I um I wanted to just share, I was just sharing an experience I had coming back from our sheep camp with my husband. And you know, the whole aspect of being native, the many just the whole there's just something really neat about being native. I just want to state that first. Um, because of our experiences. And there's been many, you know, harsh experiences that we've gone through, really harsh, traumatic experiences. But also the Lord has blessed us too with some really neat ones that has built our character. And I was telling this to my husband as we came home from sheep camp, is that when I was a child, we well, my husband wanted to take our sheep back up to our traditional grazing area, which is about 15 miles from where we are now, but it's really rugged and it's very rocky. And I told him, you have to be pretty in shape to be out there because you can get hurt. And so I was telling him back when I was a child, um, um, my I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I was following my grandmother around as she herded sheep about maybe 2 miles out, and I would just follow her wherever that she went, and whatever that she did, I would just emulate her. And by the end of the day, I would probably walk about 4 to 5 miles, and my legs would ache. And at the end of the day, she would be massaging my legs because they would hurt so bad. And but today, our young people they are experiencing something totally different. Now we're in this um, generation and this time frame where our children they are somewhat held captive by technology. And so to have them even go outside sometimes is like a huge challenge. And so and what I'm really just really advocating for is that we get our children, through our stories, through our sharing, through our experiences, through just, getting some hands-on kind of learning and getting them out on Mother Earth and really, getting them to be appreciative and thankful for what the Lord has given us. And then retelling them the stories of their grandparents and just kind of saturating them with these kinds of experiences and gaining that knowledge that that's there, but they're not accessing it all the time. And so, we hear of it maybe at school, different kinds of stories, but specifically our own family stories. And so I'm really, that's one thing that I'm really trying to do with my grandchildren, and in little ways. I asked one day, we did a family night, and we taught our grandkids how to build a fire. It seems like it's so like a simple task, but I first let them try to build their own fire, and they couldn't do it. And it took them like 10 or 15, I don't know how many minutes they tried to build this fire with these big logs. And it was such a fun, you know, activity for them to learn how to build a good fire and get it nice and roaring hot. And then, we made something with it with the fire. So, those are some of the little things that we're doing with our family night. And we have a Zoom family night where we try to include as many people in our family to come to Zoom. Like tonight will be at 6, we have a Zoom night. And I just don't, we read the scriptures and we do things with Come Follow Me, but we also learn how to do something. So it's really fun. So I'm hoping that I could share that with the other families and let them know that the Lord loves us and that we need to strengthen our families if we're going to stay, a family and move forward. So I just wanted to share that.
I love that, like all the hands-on aspect that you said. But as you were saying that, talking about building a fire, this analogy came to me as you were saying that. I'm like, oh, sometimes we just expect the kids to have a roaring fire testimony, but maybe we need to teach them how to build it first, a little bit at a time, instead of just giving them the logs of a testimony. Here it is! And it doesn't help them at all until they know how to ignite it.
Yeah, it's very true. So we've been going to with our stake, we've been going to each of the branches and the wards within the Tuba City stake, and our stake presidency has asked us to bear testimony. And at each of these, so we don't have these talks ready or anything. We go up and we bear our testimony.
Uh-huh.
Of course, some of us, have something kind of written down, but I'm just letting the Spirit guide me every time. And so, it's really neat. And so I try to say as much as I can in my Navajo language, and then I say, it in English as well. So, but that's what he said. We need to bear testimony and to our people, and so that they know what how to bear testimony.
Yeah.
And so it's been quite. It's just so, it makes me so happy, and so I have this opportunity, and then you called me too. It's really amazing. So I have this opportunity to bear testimony again. So
Thank you. Speaking of testimony, I have one final question for you. What does it mean to you to know that you belong to the tribe of Israel?
Oh, it's such a magnificent understanding to know that I am, you know, of the tribe of Israel. It's just like when you read the scriptures and whenever it says that, you think to yourself, that's me, you know,
Mm.
I'm part of this. And and it's not like some other people that they're talking about. It's you. You yourself are part of it. This whole all the blessings that are promised in there. It just makes you feel so grateful. And I I just feel like it's something um that it allows me to kind of like try to learn and know and understand um, the people in even in the Old Testament and in the New Testament and in the Book of Mormon and just kind of picture them in my mind, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
because these are my ancestors. And so sometimes it's hard because in our own culture, we have a different like creation story. And so that because that's what we were taught. And so, but this goes beyond that and helps us to understand who we are from a greater perspective. So I'm just so thankful and it makes me feel like I'm part of a really amazing family. So
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Marilyn. It's been so great.
thank you so much for the opportunity.
I am so grateful for Marilyn Reed and for the time she gave me. In fact, it's awesome that she gave me this time because we were scheduled for a different time, and then the one that I had scheduled for this week, she had to cancel. And Marilyn asked if she could do it now instead of in a couple days, and I was like, yes, please. So I'm so grateful for Marilyn. The thing that I want to share today is a few of the things that I wrote down from women's conference, from our stake women's conference this past Saturday. It was really great. The theme was rooted in Christ, and I really loved it. It was so great. There was being rooted in faith, rooted in prayer, rooted in joy, rooted in covenants, rooted in Christ. The one that really was an oh duh moment for me, that I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to look at it different now. I'm going to think about it different, was the rooted in covenants. They were all great talks, but the one she started by saying basically that covenants are not contracts. And we've always heard that they're promises, they're two-way promises. And they are. So in some way they are contracts. But then she said they're not really contracts, they are relationships. And that was when I was like, ha ha ha. I'm sure I've heard that before, but for some reason it just struck me differently on Saturday. I was like, oh yeah, covenants are relationships. It's a relationship with our Savior. It's a relationship with our Father in heaven. Their relationships with spouses and children and parents and ancestors and progeny. I just was like, oh, and also covenants are relationships with those in our wards, in our stakes, and basically every other person in this church. And I just was like, oh yeah, I get it. Or at least I get it better now. Let's be honest. There are so many things that I'm like, oh, I get it. And then I'm like, oh, I can get it even better. Oh, I can get it even more. Okay, so that's another story. But this time I was like, oh, I get it. Covenants are not contracts. Covenants are relationships. And I'm really grateful for that talk, the things that she talked about. And then the other thing that she talked about Satan's plan was to basically bring us to earth, let us get a body, and then get us back to Heavenly Father. But the same. Like, we just have a body. That's basically the only difference, because we won't have any growth if we did Satan's plan. And that was I really, really like that view of the plan too. I was like, oh yeah, the plan, and that's why the growth here is so important, because the alternative would be not to grow. The alternative would be we wouldn't be any better other than having a body, and then we're not prepared to be like our Father in heaven. Because He's more than just having a body. He's all powerful, all full of grace, all full of the priesthood. He has experienced things, and if we had done Satan's plan, we wouldn't be closer to Heavenly Father. Those are just some of the really important thoughts that I gleaned from Stake Women's Conference, and I'm really, really glad that I went. And I hope you have opportunities to grow your testimony and to strengthen the roots of your testimony, and I hope you have a super wonderful, awesome day. Tribe of Testimonies is not sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The music is a traditional hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, arranged and performed by Kyle Forsyth. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear how this podcast is affecting you. And I'm always looking for guests. If you or someone you know would be a great guest, you can reach me at tribeoftestimonies@gmail.com.